Can you even read that GPS, or is this too complicated for you? The words hit the front seat like shards of glass. In the back of the black Mercedes, Victoria Hale, CEO of Hale Global Investments, scrolled through her phone, her voice dripping with mockery. Her diamond earrings sparkled brighter than her manners. At the wheel sat Daniel, her driver for the day, tall, quiet, his dark skin glowing faintly under the dashboard lights. His hands gripped the steering wheel with calm precision. He didn't answer. Victoria smirked. Silent treatment, huh? Fine. Just don't get lost this time. I have a 10 a.m. meeting worth more than your entire life. The car rolled through the streets of Geneva, slicing through the morning mist like a blade through silk. Everything about the city screamed old money, the kind Victoria worshipped. She adjusted her blazer, glancing at her reflection in the tinted window. I swear, these companies send anyone now. You'd think $100 million negotiation would come with a proper chauffeur. Daniel's eyes flicked to the rear-view mirror. Just for a second. Calm, controlled, then back to the road. Ma'am, I assure you, you'll arrive on time, he said softly. Victoria laughed, sharp, dismissive. Oh, relax. You're not being graded. Just drive. She went back to her phone, scrolling through headlines, her own face plastered across a business magazine. Victoria Hale, the Iron Woman of Wall Street. Her smile returned. She liked that title. She liked control. And she liked people knowing it. But the moment cracked when her phone buzzed, a single line lighting up her screen in bold red. Urgent. Translation delay. Contract review pending. Her expression hardened. What now? She muttered, opening the email. A wall of corporate jargon and panic spilled across the screen. The translation of the merger contract, the one she was flying halfway across the world to finalize, had been delayed. Her Swiss partners refused to sign anything until the Japanese clause was re-verified. She cursed under her breath. Idiots. I told them to hire proper interpreters. Daniel glanced in the mirror. Excuse me, ma'am, if it's about the Hale Yamamoto merger, there might be a... She cut him off instantly. I wasn't talking to you. Silence filled the car again. Outside, the cobblestone roads narrowed as they approached the old financial district, where centuries-old buildings house billion-dollar firms. The sound of church bells mixed with the hum of the city's elite. Victoria typed furiously on her phone, barking orders to her assistant. Tell legal to fix it. I don't care how. Then, as if the universe wanted to humble her, a soft ding echoed from the car's console. Navigation recalculating. She sighed. Oh, perfect. Even the car doesn't know where it's going. But Daniel remained calm, his voice steady. There's construction ahead. I'll take an alternate route. It'll save us 8 minutes. Victoria rolled her eyes. Fine. Just don't get creative. The Mercedes glided through narrow streets, past rows of luxury boutiques and embassy flags fluttering in the breeze. Daniel's hands moved with effortless precision. Every turn smooth, every lane change perfect. He knew these roads, not like a driver memorizing routes, but like someone who understood cities. As they stopped at a light, Victoria's phone rang. The name flashing across the screen made her jaw tighten. Robert Gaines, chairman of the board. She hit answer. Robert, I'm on my way. Yes, I saw the email. No, I'm not worried. I'll handle it. I always do. Her tone was ice-cold confidence. But Daniel could hear the tremor buried underneath. Robert's voice crackled faintly through the speaker. Victoria, they're refusing to sign without that translation. And Yamamoto's legal team just brought in their own interpreter, someone we don't control. Her knuckles whitened around the phone. Then I'll make them change their mind. The light turned green. Daniel pressed the accelerator gently. Victoria ended the call, shoving the phone beside her. Unbelievable. Months of work, and one translation error could kill $100 million deal. She looked out the window at a group of diplomats entering a marble building. Foreigners, always overcomplicating things. Daniel spoke quietly, eyes still on the road. Sometimes, ma'am, what looks like complication is simply precision. She looked up sharply. Excuse me? But Daniel didn't elaborate. He just drove, calm, professional, unbothered. Victoria scoffed. You sound like a philosophy book. Stick to driving. And for a moment, that was the end of it. But as they pulled into the circular driveway of the Imperial Geneva Hotel, Daniel's phone buzzed on the console. A name appeared in Japanese script, Embassy Translation Division. He silenced it immediately, but not before Victoria noticed. Her brows furrowed. What was that? Daniel gave a polite smile. Just an old contact, ma'am. Victoria narrowed her eyes. Embassy? What kind of driver has contacts at an embassy? Daniel met her gaze in the rear-view mirror. His voice calm, his tone unreadable. The kind who used to drive a different kind of negotiation. Before she could question him, the valet opened her door, breaking the moment. Victoria stepped out, straightened her suit, and muttered under her breath, Remind me to request a different driver next time. Daniel just smiled faintly, stepping out to open her umbrella against a light drizzle. He didn't say it out loud, but the thought lingered behind his calm eyes. Next time, you'll request me. Victoria Hale stepped out of the black Mercedes and into the grand lobby of the Hotel de la Lumière. Marble floors gleamed under the soft glow of crystal chandeliers, and the scent of fresh orchids mingled with the faint aroma of French pastries. Every detail screamed wealth, prestige, and the kind of world Victoria thrived in. Her heels clicked against polished stone as she walked toward the reception, her phone tucked under her arm like a shield. Room 802, she announced to the concierge without looking up. I have a meeting in 15 minutes. The concierge nodded politely, though his eyes lingered on her with a mix of admiration and mild intimidation. Victoria thrived on that. It reminded her that every step she took in this world was earned, or at least that's what she told herself. Daniel followed silently behind, the suit he wore perfectly tailored, the kind of black that seemed to absorb light and authority. He didn't speak unless spoken to, and that was exactly how Victoria liked it, a vehicle for her power, not a person with thoughts of his own. Except he had thoughts. She just didn't know it yet. As they approached the elevator, Victoria's phone buzzed again. Another email. This time a digital version of the contract she'd been reviewing all week. Her eyes scanned the subject line. Japanese partnership delay. Translator unavailable. She frowned. Again? She muttered, voice sharp enough to cut glass. Every single time it's a language issue. Daniel's eyes flicked to the elevator panel, calm and measured. Ma'am, I can assist with translations if needed. Victoria laughed, a short, dismissive sound that made a nearby guest glance her way. Assist? Don't be ridiculous. You drive. That's it. Leave the thinking to me. Daniel didn't respond. He never did. The elevator doors opened with a soft ding, revealing polished brass interiors and mirrors reflecting 100 small lights. Victoria strode inside, Daniel following, the silence between them growing heavier with every passing second. She glanced at her reflection in the mirrored wall. Victoria Hale, she whispered, almost to herself. Queen of Wall Street. The woman everyone wants to beat but can't. Daniel's calm voice broke the spell. Ma'am, if I may, the meeting involves complex negotiations with Nakamura Enterprises. Precision in language and cultural protocol is essential. A misstep could cost the company millions. Victoria spun to face him, her eyes flashing with disbelief. What did you just say? I can handle the interpretation, he repeated evenly, eyes steady on the mirror reflection of her face. All 9 languages required for the meeting, including Japanese and Mandarin. Her laugh was short and cutting. You? 9 languages? You're my driver, Daniel. Drivers don't speak 9 languages. They drive cars and open doors. Daniel's hands tightened slightly on the steering wheel as he guided the Mercedes smoothly into the valet zone. His jaw was tight, but his composure remained absolute. Drivers can be many things, ma'am. Sometimes they're the only people paying attention when others aren't. Victoria rolled her eyes, shaking her head. Poetic, aren't we? Look, just drop me off. The world's waiting, and I don't have time for surprises. The valet opened the door with a flourish. Victoria stepped onto the cobblestone courtyard, her heels clicking with authority. The morning sun glinted off her diamond earrings, a beacon of power. She paused, hand on her purse, and glanced around, taking in the ornate fountains, the rows of luxury cars, the staff moving like synchronized dancers through the lobby. And then she noticed him, a man standing near the reception desk, tall, calm, impeccably dressed. The kind of presence that didn't demand attention, but commanded it. She blinked. Familiar? No. Wait, the same poise, the same quiet authority. Daniel opened the rear door behind her. "Ma'am, I suggest we proceed inside. Mr. Nakamura's team is expecting you shortly." Victoria waved him off, striding forward with the kind of confidence that came from years of commanding rooms and boardrooms. Yet, a flicker of unease brushed across her mind. Something about the man near the desk felt different. Inside the grand conference room, polished mahogany tables reflected the morning sun. Executives from Nakamura Enterprises sat in perfect order. Crisp suits, precise posture, expressions carefully neutral. The air smelled faintly of leather, ink, and tension. Victoria raised her chin, ready to dominate. "Good morning, gentlemen," she said, her voice carrying over the room like a blade. "Victoria Hale. Let's get started. We have a deal to make." The translator assigned to the meeting shuffled papers nervously. "Ms. Hale, we were expecting the interpreter to arrive 20 minutes ago." Victoria's smile tightened. "Interpreter? We don't need delays. Let's proceed." Daniel stepped forward, his voice calm, almost a whisper in the room. "Ma'am, if I may, I can handle all translations for this meeting." The room froze. Eyes turned. Sharp glances exchanged. Whispers began, soft and curious. Victoria's jaw dropped. "Excuse me? You?" Daniel inclined his head slightly. "9 languages, ma'am. I assure you, your contracts will be interpreted accurately. Every nuance, every clause." A long silence followed. Executives adjusted in their seats, impressed yet skeptical. Victoria's mind raced. Driver, interpreter, what? Then Daniel began, speaking first in Japanese with flawless tone, posture, and respect. The executive's eyes widened. He seamlessly transitioned to Mandarin, then English, translating contract clauses with precision, addressing cultural nuances and potential pitfalls. Victoria watched, stunned. Her driver, her quiet, unassuming driver, was single-handedly saving the $100 million deal she had been fighting for. Every sharp word she had ever thrown at him, every slight, every laugh, now seemed absurd. Daniel paused, turned to her, calm and composed. "Ma'am, the contract is secure. Your negotiation is positioned for success. We can proceed confidently." Victoria froze. Her mouth opened. No words came out. The room, now fully aware, looked at her with curiosity. The woman who had wielded power for years suddenly felt powerless. Daniel glanced at her once more, expression unreadable, and then returned to the head of the table. Confidence radiated from him like sunlight through fog. And in that moment, Victoria realized something that would change the rest of her career. She had underestimated him entirely. The boardroom felt smaller now, the air heavier. Every executive's gaze alternated between Victoria Hale and Daniel. The atmosphere was a careful dance of anticipation and disbelief, and Victoria was trapped in the center. Mr. Nakamura, the lead negotiator for the Japanese firm, spoke first, his voice calm but firm. "Ms. Hale, as we discussed via email, there are specific clauses regarding intellectual property and joint ventures. We must ensure that each detail aligns perfectly with our corporate standards." Victoria, still reeling, opened her mouth to respond, but Daniel stepped forward, his posture commanding yet unobtrusive. "Mr. Nakamura," Daniel said in fluent Japanese, voice smooth and confident, "Ms. Hale has reviewed the clauses extensively. I can assure you that any concerns you have will be addressed precisely according to your expectations." Nakamura's eyes widened slightly, impressed. A subtle nod acknowledged Daniel's competence. Victoria's pulse raced. She had relied on interpreters before, expensive, professional, sometimes accurate, but never this seamless. This was more than translation. Daniel wasn't just speaking their languages. He was thinking in them, anticipating their cultural expectations, navigating every nuance. The room fell into tense discussion. Mr. Nakamura raised a point about licensing timelines. Daniel switched effortlessly, translating while also clarifying subtle cultural cues. The importance of phrasing, the honorifics, the implications of each clause. Victoria listened, stunned. Her mouth opened, then closed. Every instinct she had about control and power shifted. This was no longer about her commanding a meeting. This was about trust, recognizing the quiet authority standing beside her. Minutes stretched. Negotiations that could have faltered within seconds instead progressed smoothly. Questions from the Mandarin-speaking executives were answered in real time, Daniel's calm voice cutting through any potential miscommunication. Victoria's mind raced. All these years, all these assumptions, I judged them entirely wrong. One moment, a clause regarding royalty percentages threatened to derail the deal. The Japanese team was tense. The Mandarin executives were whispering, exchanging notes, frowning. Daniel leaned slightly toward Victoria, whispering in English just for her. Ma'am, there's a misalignment in the translation of exclusive rights. Allow me. Before she could protest, Daniel addressed the room, smoothly clarifying clause in Japanese, then Mandarin, then English. By the time he finished, the executives nodded, smiles returning. Tension dissolved. Victoria's face paled. Every subtle jab she had thrown at him earlier, the sarcasm, the belittling, came rushing back in sharp clarity. He wasn't just her driver. He was her secret weapon, her silent guardian through one of the most critical negotiations of her career. Minutes later, the discussion turned to risk mitigation. A senior legal advisor for Nakamura Enterprises raised a potential issue with a minor regulatory detail. Daniel immediately translated, explained the mitigation strategy, and reassured the team of its feasibility, all while maintaining the perfect tone, posture, and cultural sensitivity. Victoria felt sweat prick her brow, though her hands remained steady on the table. She wanted to speak, to reclaim control, but she realized something profound. She didn't need to. Daniel had already seized it, quietly, impeccably, perfectly. Finally, Mr. Nakamura leaned back, eyes meeting Victoria's with a subtle, approving smile. He nodded toward Daniel. Your colleague is remarkable. We appreciate the clarity he provides. Victoria felt the room spin slightly. Her driver, the man she had laughed at, the man she had underestimated, had just saved a $100 million deal, in 9 languages, across 3 cultures, without a single hesitation. She opened her mouth again. This time, no words of mockery came, only silence, heavy with awe and a dawning respect she couldn't yet articulate. Daniel returned his attention to her, calm, collected, unshaken. Ma'am, shall we proceed with the signing? Victoria swallowed. Her pride stung, but gratitude began to replace it. She nodded, motioning to the documents. The room buzzed with quiet anticipation. Executives on both sides began signing, hands steady, pens moving decisively. The deal, once teetering on the edge of collapse, solidified in a seamless display of precision and authority. Victoria's eyes never left Daniel, and as she watched him, standing tall, quiet, and commanding, she realized a truth she had long ignored. True power doesn't always come from titles, wealth, or status. Sometimes it comes in the most unexpected forms, the quiet, unassuming brilliance that no one dares to see until it's too late. When the final signature was made, the room erupted in subdued applause. Daniel's expression never changed, but Victoria knew the magnitude of what had just occurred. She had underestimated him, and in doing so, learned one of the most valuable lessons of her career. The conference room slowly emptied, leaving Victoria standing by the long mahogany table, papers still scattered in front of her. The executives had returned to their offices, chatting quietly, exchanging congratulations. But Victoria's world had shrunk to a single figure, Daniel. She swallowed hard, trying to steady her racing thoughts. 9 languages, negotiating flawlessly. Saving the deal I almost ruined. Daniel stood by the window, looking out at the Geneva skyline, his hands clasped behind his back. Calm, controlled, impeccable. The man she had mocked hours ago now radiated a quiet authority that made her feel, for the first time in years, small. "Daniel," she started, voice uncertain, a rare tremor threading through it. He turned slightly, waiting patiently. You saved that deal," she said finally, struggling to articulate the enormity of what she'd just witnessed. "I don't know how to thank you." He tilted his head, a faint smile forming. "Ma'am, thank you is not necessary. My responsibility is to ensure your success, and today I ensured it." Victoria's hands clenched into fists at her sides. Pride, guilt, and all warred within her. How did I get so arrogant? How did I think a man in a driver's seat couldn't also be the most capable person in the room? She moved closer, lowering her voice. I misjudged you." Daniel's smile widened just enough to feel human, yet it remained dignified. "It's understandable, ma'am. Many do at first. What matters is how we act when the truth is revealed." Victoria looked away, shame prickling her skin. She wanted to disappear, to retreat into her office and pretend none of this had happened. But a part of her knew she couldn't. Not anymore. "Tell me something," she said, her voice quieter now, more sincere. "How do you know all of this? 9 languages, cultural etiquette, negotiation techniques across continents." Daniel's expression softened, almost imperceptibly. "Years of study, ma'am, and observation. Most importantly, a belief that understanding people, truly understanding them, is more valuable than any amount of money." Victoria swallowed hard. She had spent decades chasing power, titles, and deals. And yet, here was a man who held an influence far beyond any CEO's corner office. Quiet, unassuming, brilliant. I want to learn from you," she admitted finally. Her voice was firm now, stripped of arrogance. Not just about languages or negotiations, about seeing people, about understanding them. Daniel's eyes held hers steadily. "Then the first lesson begins now. Observe, listen, respect, and never assume that appearances tell the whole story." Victoria nodded slowly, the weight of the moment settling in. "This isn't just about a deal. This is a lesson I needed my entire life to learn." A soft chime echoed from her phone, a notification that the deal documents had been approved and filed. She glanced at the screen, then back at Daniel. "Congratulations, Daniel," she said, finally smiling. "You deserve more than a thank you. You deserve recognition." Daniel inclined his head, polite but composed. "Recognition is not the goal, ma'am. Results are. Today, the results speak for themselves." Victoria exhaled, a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. And in that moment, the entire dynamic of her world shifted. No longer was she the one in absolute control. For the first time, she understood the power of humility, the strength of unseen brilliance, and the quiet force of someone who could shape the outcome without anyone noticing until it was already done. As they left the conference room together, Victoria's mind replayed the morning's events, the mockery, the misjudgment, the realization. She could feel the weight of her own arrogance pressing down, but also the exhilarating possibility of transformation, a chance to become better, not just richer or more powerful. And Daniel? He simply drove her back to her office, quiet and unassuming, letting her thoughts settle, while the Geneva skyline shimmered in the morning light. By the time Victoria reached her office, the first hints of chaos were already surfacing. Her assistant, Julia, was hovering by her desk, phone in hand, eyes wide. "Ma'am, you need to see this," Julia said, scrolling furiously. She handed Victoria her tablet. Headlines screamed across the screen. "CEO mocked her driver. Turns out he saved $1 million deal." Victoria froze. The words seemed to hit her harder than any boardroom confrontation. Her face paled as she read the snippets. Snippets of security footage, clips of her laughing at Daniel's expense, all juxtaposed with footage of him flawlessly negotiating in multiple languages for the company's benefit. The room felt suddenly smaller. The polished walls, the minimalist art, the expensive furniture, none of it could shield her from the truth anymore. This can't be real," she whispered, her voice cracking slightly. Julia shook her head. It's everywhere. Social media, news outlets, financial blogs. They're calling him the nine-language savior. People are saying he's the real genius behind the deal. Victoria ran a hand through her hair, a knot of frustration and shame twisting in her stomach. All morning, I treated him like he was invisible. And now, everyone else sees him as indispensable. Daniel appeared quietly behind her, as if summoned. His calm presence contrasted sharply with the storm raging inside Victoria. "Ma'am," he said softly, "attention from others does not define your actions, but it is an opportunity to reflect." Victoria turned, her eyes wide. "Daniel, I never imagined this. They're all praising you." He smiled faintly, but there was no arrogance in it. "Recognition is fleeting, ma'am. What matters is understanding." Today's lesson is about humility, observation, and the value of every person's contribution. Victoria felt a pang of guilt she couldn't shake. She had been blind to his talents, blind to the respect he deserved, blind to her own arrogance. I need to make this right," she said, her voice firm, determined. "I need to show everyone that I see the truth now, that I understand what I almost overlooked." Daniel's eyes softened. "Actions speak louder than words, ma'am. This is your chance to demonstrate that understanding, not just acknowledge it." Victoria nodded, resolve settling in her chest. She pulled out her phone, drafting a public statement. Acknowledgement of her mistake, praise for Daniel's exceptional skill, and a commitment to learning from him. She hesitated for a moment, then hit send. Almost immediately, notifications began flooding in. Messages of support, shares, comments praising her honesty and Daniel's genius. The tide was turning, but the lesson remained crystal clear. True leadership is not about ego or status. It's about recognizing brilliance wherever it exists and giving credit where it's due. Julia watched her boss with admiration. "You're handling this better than anyone expected." Victoria exhaled, feeling the weight of the morning lift slightly. "I'm not handling it, Julia. I'm learning. And Daniel, he's teaching me." Daniel's quiet nod was acknowledgement enough. He didn't need the praise, the headlines, or the viral fame. His satisfaction came from the work itself, from guiding her to see the bigger picture. Victoria realized in that moment that her world had changed, not because of the deal, not because of the money, but because she had been forced to confront her own arrogance and had been shown a path to true understanding by someone she had once underestimated. She glanced at Daniel, now walking calmly toward the door. "Daniel," she said, her voice steady, more respectful than ever before. "Today, you've changed more than just my deal. You've changed how I see everything." He paused, turning to meet her gaze. "That is all any of us can hope to do, ma'am, for others and for ourselves." Victoria watched him leave, the echo of his words lingering in the office like a quiet revolution. Outside, the city of Geneva continued its hustle, unaware that within one corner office, a woman had been transformed, and a man had quietly reshaped the understanding of leadership, respect, and brilliance. The morning sun poured through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Hale Global Investments, reflecting off the polished glass of Geneva's skyline. Victoria sat at her executive desk, the tablet still warm from the viral response she had posted. Yet, the sense of triumph she expected was muted. Her office phone rang incessantly. Julia, standing nearby, was fielding calls from media outlets, board members, and investors, all seeking comment on the nine-language savior who had just upended corporate expectations. "Ma'am," Julia said, her tone tight with urgency, "the board wants a meeting in 30 minutes. They're concerned about the optics and the narrative surrounding Daniel." Victoria took a deep breath. "Julia, let them come. It's time they see the full picture." She turned to Daniel, who had entered quietly, a folder under his arm. He set it on her desk, his movements measured and precise, as if every gesture had a purpose. "Ma'am, I prepared translations and summaries for the international contracts in 9 languages," he said. "The board meeting will go smoothly if you follow my notes." Victoria blinked, momentarily stunned. 9 languages, and you didn't mention this until now? Daniel's calm smile was all the answer she needed. I prefer to let action speak first. Her eyes softened. She realized she had been judging him for his current role, blind to the depth of his capabilities. She was beginning to understand. Leadership isn't about commanding respect through fear or wealth. It's about recognizing talent where it exists. The boardroom was tense when Victoria and Daniel arrived. Seated around the mahogany table were men and women accustomed to having their authority unquestioned, their decisions rarely challenged. Today, the dynamic was different. Whispers rippled through the room as Daniel placed his folder before Victoria. The board members looked at him curiously, suspicion mixed with awe. "Ma'am, we're ready for your presentation," Daniel said, his voice smooth, confident. Victoria inhaled, the weight of the morning settling on her shoulders. She looked at the board and began to speak. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said, projecting authority tempered with humility, "today's events have taught me a lesson about leadership, recognition, and the value of seeing talent without bias. The individual standing beside me, our driver, Daniel, has ensured that a $100 million deal is secure. And he did so while demonstrating skills in 9 different languages, negotiating with precision and respect across multiple cultural contexts." The room went silent. Eyes widened, some shifting uncomfortably in their seats. A senior board member cleared his throat. "Ms. Hale, forgive me, but are you suggesting that a driver has directly contributed to this deal?" Victoria smiled, firm and unshakable. "Not just a driver. A strategist, a linguist, and a professional whose expertise we would have overlooked at our peril. And it is my responsibility as a leader to recognize and credit talent wherever it exists." Daniel handed her a translated contract excerpt, and Victoria continued. She demonstrated, line by line, how his translations and quick multilingual negotiations had resolved potential conflicts with international partners. Each word was met with growing astonishment around the table. By the time she concluded, even the most skeptical board members were nodding in acknowledgement. The room, once filled with doubt, now brimmed with respect, both for Daniel and for the woman willing to admit she had underestimated him. As the meeting adjourned, one board member approached Victoria. "Ms. Hale, I have to say, your approach today, it's revolutionary. You've not only secured the deal, but redefined how we view leadership and talent." Victoria exhaled, glancing at Daniel, who merely nodded, calm as ever. She understood now. This moment wasn't about public perception or media headlines. It was about learning humility, valuing people for who they are, and embracing the unexpected brilliance hidden in plain sight. Outside, Geneva's streets continued to hum with life, unaware that inside a corporate tower, a quiet revolution in leadership had just begun, one that would ripple far beyond boardroom walls. By midday, Geneva was buzzing. News outlets had caught wind of the extraordinary events at Hale Global Investments, the story of a CEO who had laughed at her driver, only to have him save a $100 million deal in 9 languages. Victoria walked to the hallways of her office, the clicks of her heels echoing, yet she no longer felt the familiar pang of superiority. Each step was measured, her mind racing with strategy, not ego. "Ma'am, the press is gathering outside," Julia warned. "They're camped in front of the building. They want interviews with both of you." Victoria stopped, taking a slow breath. "Good. Let them see it. Let the world see what true talent looks like, and what we risk when we ignore it." Daniel remained silent, observing the flurry of assistants and journalists. His calm presence grounded the chaos around him. As they exited the building, flashes of cameras erupted. Reporters called out questions, their voices overlapping like a storm. "Ms. Hale, can you explain what happened this morning? Is it true your driver speaks 9 languages? Did he really secure the deal for you?" Victoria raised her hand, signaling for silence. The crowd hushed instantly, a testament to her authority. She turned to Daniel, who simply nodded, ready to follow her lead. "Today," Victoria began, her voice strong and deliberate, "we witnessed something that should never be rare in business. Recognition. Recognition of talent, of skill, and of humanity. Daniel, our driver, demonstrated exceptional ability under pressure. Skills that not only saved this company millions, but also reminded us that brilliance does not always come with a title. A murmur of astonishment ran through the crowd. Cameras clicked. Reporters scribbled furiously. Daniel's composure remained unshaken, though the faintest trace of pride touched his eyes. "Daniel," Victoria continued, "you have my gratitude and the gratitude of every person in this building. Today, you've shown us what it means to see people, truly see them, beyond their job titles or uniforms." For the first time, the world saw Daniel not just as a driver, but as a professional whose talents transcended expectations. As the press dispersed, Victoria and Daniel returned inside, only to be met with a call from the company's European partners, concerned that the publicized story might cause hesitation in ongoing negotiations. "Ma'am, they want assurance that the deal is still on track," Julia said nervously. Victoria looked at Daniel, a hint of a smile forming. "Then let's show them what happens when talent meets opportunity." Daniel picked up the phone. In rapid succession, he switched seamlessly between French, German, Japanese, Spanish, and Mandarin. Each conversation concluded with nods, murmurs of approval, and firm agreements. Victoria watched in awe as her driver handled more complex negotiations in 15 minutes than she had in years of boardroom meetings. The final call ended. Daniel set down the phone. "All parties are confirmed," he said, his voice steady. "The deal is secure. No delays, no miscommunications." Victoria's eyes glimmered with admiration. She had underestimated him, yes, but now she realized that true leadership sometimes meant stepping aside and letting others shine. "Daniel," she said, voice low but sincere, "today you didn't just save a deal. You changed the way I see the world." He gave a small, measured smile. "I only did what was necessary, ma'am. The rest was up to you." At that moment, the office felt different, lighter, charged with energy. A quiet revolution had taken place, not in the streets or in headlines, but in the hearts of those willing to see the truth. Talent is everywhere, and it cannot be ignored. Outside the building, the Geneva sun dipped lower, casting golden reflections on the glass towers. The city moved on, unaware that within one office, a lesson in humility, respect, and recognition had just reshaped the future of Hale Global Investments and the lives of those bold enough to see past appearances. Back inside the glass-walled boardroom, Victoria Hale took her seat at the head of the table. The morning's chaos had subsided, but the tension lingered like a thick fog. Around her, executives exchanged quiet glances, some skeptical, some awestruck, all aware that the events of the day had already become legendary. "Ms. Hale," began Richard Lang, the CFO, his tone cautious. While Daniel's intervention was impressive, "we have to address protocol. We can't have drivers handling negotiations. It sets a precedent." Victoria leaned back, her eyes sharp but calm. "Richard, let me ask you something. Did Daniel fail?" "No," he admitted reluctantly. "But this isn't standard procedure. The optics, Victoria interrupted, were perfect, because for the first time, someone in this company recognized talent when it appeared, without judgment, without assumptions. Daniel didn't just save the deal. He protected our reputation, our money, and our credibility in front of international partners." There was a pause. Some executives shifted uncomfortably in their seats and used to such direct accountability. Victoria's gaze fell on Daniel, who stood silently beside the large conference table. His presence radiated quiet authority, his posture a study in professionalism. "Daniel," she said, "why don't you explain to the board what happened this morning?" Daniel's voice was calm, precise. The European partners requested updates in multiple languages. Their legal teams and financial advisors could only communicate in their native tongues. I relayed negotiations in French, German, Japanese, Spanish, Mandarin, Italian, Portuguese, Arabic, and Russian. Each call concluded with full agreement on terms and no delays. Without accurate communication, the $100 million contract risked being delayed, possibly costing the company tens of millions. The room went silent. Even Richard Lang looked stunned. The reality sank in. The company had almost lost a critical deal. Not because of strategy or numbers, but because someone underestimated a person based on a uniform. "Daniel," Victoria continued, her voice softer now, What you did today wasn't just exceptional. It was necessary. And it proves a lesson this company desperately needs to remember. Respect, skill, and intelligence exist everywhere. Titles don't define value. Across the table, murmurs of agreement rippled. Some executives were beginning to grasp the depth of what had occurred. Others, still cautious, scribbled notes furiously, recognizing that ignoring this moment could be catastrophic for their careers. Just then, a call came in from the London office. Victoria answered, and Daniel seamlessly handled the translation for a high-stakes conference with partners negotiating a merger. Within 20 minutes, the London executives were satisfied, the legal adjustments clarified, and the contracts ready for final signatures. Victoria hung up the phone and looked around. "Gentlemen and ladies," she said, her tone carrying the weight of authority, "Daniel has just demonstrated that talent is not measured by your position or your appearance. It is measured by results, skill, and integrity. Today, he has outperformed every expectation." At that moment, a hush settled over the room. Even the most skeptical executives understood that what had happened was historic. Daniel wasn't just a driver. He was a force, a reminder that leadership often comes from unexpected places. Victoria rose from her chair. "Effective immediately, Daniel will serve as my chief liaison for all multilingual and international communications. He will have direct access to this board, and he will advise on matters of protocol, negotiation, and cultural intelligence." There were audible gasps. Some executives looked shocked. Others nodded slowly, a mix of awe and acceptance. Daniel inclined his head, accepting the new responsibility with quiet dignity. "I am honored, ma'am," he said. Victoria returned to her seat, her gaze unwavering. "And let this be a warning. Underestimating talent, underestimating people, or underestimating the power of respect will no longer be tolerated in this company. We succeed together or we fail, and Daniel just ensured we will continue to succeed." The boardroom, once tense and skeptical, now hummed with energy. Conversations began to shift. Ideas flowed, strategies evolved, and for the first time, the executives recognized that true leadership sometimes meant stepping aside to allow hidden talent to shine. As the sun dipped lower over Geneva, the city outside continued its quiet hustle. Inside Hale Global Investments, a transformation was underway, not of buildings or technology, but of mindset. Respect, recognition, and the power of unseen talent had claimed their place at the heart of the company, and no one would ever forget it. Part 9. By the following morning, Geneva was buzzing with whispers. Social media had already begun circulating footage from Victoria's ride, clips of her mocking Daniel, juxtaposed with images of him flawlessly saving the $100 million deal. The hashtag #DriverSavesDeal deal was trending in financial circles before breakfast. Victoria entered the office, her heels clicking sharply against the marble floor. The boardroom door opened to a flurry of activity. Phones buzzed, emails flooded in, and news alerts pinged incessantly. "Ma'am, the press is outside," announced her assistant, Elena, her tone tight with urgency. "They know about Daniel. They know what happened." Victoria paused, assessing the situation. She could feel her heart rate quicken, not from fear but anticipation. This was uncharted territory. The world had seen a CEO humiliate an employee, only to have the same employee emerge as a hero. She strode to the window, looking out over the city. The bustling streets reflected her own conflicted feelings, chaos, scrutiny, but also opportunity. Turning back, she met Daniel's calm gaze. "Daniel," she said, her voice measured, "are you ready for this?" He nodded. "I am, ma'am. But I suggest we manage the narrative carefully. Accuracy is essential." Victoria took a deep breath. "Then let's show them who we really are." By mid-morning, the first wave of journalists arrived. Cameras clicked, microphones extended, and the office lobby became a stage. Victoria stepped forward, her expression composed, projecting confidence. Beside her, Daniel remained stoic, his presence commanding quiet attention. "Good morning," Victoria began, her voice steady. "Earlier this week, I made a mistake. I misjudged a member of our team based on assumptions and appearances. That mistake could have cost Hale Global Investments a major international deal. Reporters leaned in, hanging on every word. Daniel spoke next, translating for global press in flawless French, German, and Japanese. Each sentence resonated with precision, eliminating miscommunication, and emphasizing the importance of cultural and linguistic competence in international business. Victoria continued. Thanks to Daniel's expertise, skill, and dedication, we not only salvaged the contract, but ensured it exceeded our expectations. He acted with integrity, intelligence, and professionalism. Today, we recognize his contributions and ensure no talent goes unacknowledged in this company ever again. Flashbulbs erupted. Journalists scribbled notes furiously. Social media accounts exploded with praise. Daniel's quiet heroism had become a symbol, proof that brilliance can exist in any role, regardless of title. Meanwhile, back in the boardroom, the executives were already adjusting strategies. Investor confidence surged. Analysts who had predicted turmoil were now revising projections upward. The company's reputation had transformed overnight, fueled by a story of humility, recognition, and decisive action. Victoria caught Daniel's eye again. "You've changed more than this deal," she said softly. "You've changed how we operate, how we see talent, and how we lead. This is bigger than me, bigger than the board. It's a cultural shift." Daniel inclined his head. "It starts with one act of respect, ma'am, and it grows from there." The press conference ended, leaving a trail of headlines. Driver saves $100 million deal. CEO admits mistake, Daniel Thompson. The multilingual hero behind Hale Global Investment success. Respect over prejudice. The moment that changed the company. As the crowds dispersed, Victoria felt a shift within herself. For the first time, she understood that leadership was not about control, intimidation, or appearances. It was about recognizing talent, valuing every contribution, and having the humility to learn from those around you. She turned to Daniel one last time. "You're not just a driver. You're my right hand, my advisor, and the reason this company is stronger than it was yesterday. And the world needs to know it." Daniel's calm smile reflected the magnitude of what had happened. "Then let's make sure they do, ma'am. But let's do it with accuracy, dignity, and purpose." And with that, Hale Global Investments entered a new era, one defined not by hierarchy, ego, or appearances, but by skill, respect, and the unshakable power of recognizing true talent wherever it exists.